Hi, hi, hi. Good afternoon. Please take a seat, everybody. Please take a seat. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So 1 year ago today, I stood with my family on the steps of the State House and placed my hand on actually two Bibles and was sworn in as the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland. The LG and we spoke to the people, sorry, she was on that side of me, spoke to the people of the state about the work ahead, but also about a measure of excitement that we had about being able to go get the work done. And we made it clear that in this moment, that our administration, and truthfully this entire state, would see children differently. We would fight for the children we know, and we would fight for the children that we don't. That we would fight for the children that are here now, and for all those children in the future, that we would fight for the hope of them. That we would protect them better, that we would support them better, and that we would see them better. So in our first year, we collectively, with the General Assembly, launched a full frontal assault on child poverty. And together, we helped lift over 30,000 Maryland children up the next rung on the economic ladder. In our first year, we mounted an all-of-the-above approach when it came to public safety and invested in programs at the Department of Juvenile Services to disrupt cycles of crime amongst youth. And today, we write the next chapter in the work ahead to uplift all of Maryland's children. In a few moments, I will proudly sign two executive orders with children at their core. First and foremost, these orders will create a new Governor's Office for Children. The Office for Children will be headquartered and will be the headquarters of our mission to improve the well-being of Maryland's kids. The members of this office will move in partnership with the leaders of the public sector, the private sector, the legislature, local elected officials, and they will take on big issues, and they will take them on together. And philanthropy. Hey, Lisa. They'll work together to take on issues of food insecurity. They're going to work together to improve educational outcomes. They're going to work together to expand access to health care. They will work together to drive down youth homelessness. They'll work together to combat child poverty. When I ran for governor, I promised the people of Maryland that I would establish a governor's office for children. If we said it, we meant it. And today, we're keeping that promise. We've been working together to design this initiative for months, and we knew that we had to select the right person to help lead this work. And so today, I am proud to announce that Carmel Martin will serve as a special secretary of the Governor's Office for Children and senior advisor for economic mobility. Carmel has dedicated her life to public service. You can find her fingerprints all over the last 2 decades of American education policy. She is a veteran of the Obama White House. She's a veteran of the Biden White House. I was actually with her down in D.C. and walking around with her in the White House grounds like walking around with the Beatles. She has advised U.S. Senators Ted Kennedy, Jeff Bingaman, Tom Daschle, and our own Barbara Mikulski. She has served at the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Education, the Center for American Progress, and the Emerson Collective. She is a true champion for our children, and we could not be prouder and could not be more excited to have her on our team. Thank you so much, Carmel. Thank you. And as special secretary, she will also be charged with leading and reinvigorating the Governor's Children's Cabinet, because we need all hands on deck in this work. And I'm thrilled to have members of the Children's Cabinet with us here this afternoon. I'm also proud to announce that these executive orders will rename and refocus the existing agency of state government. It is currently known as, and get ready because it's long, the Governor's Office for Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services. Today, we rename it to the Governor's Office for Crime Prevention and Policy, because language matters. The names we give speak not just to our work, they speak to our values. Lumping together the words crime, youth, and victims is a statement of values. And this administration refuses to see our children as deficits. They are not deficits that need to be managed. We see our children as assets that need to be unearthed. And with this new title, the Office of Crime Prevention and Policy, this will benefit from a clearer and a more focused mission. And leading that effort will be the remarkable Dorothy Lenny. Adding Dorothy to this team is a continued examination of what it means to have strength on strength. And this agency will be charged with crafting innovative programs in partnership to improve public safety, to support law enforcement, to deliver resources to victims' services. And yes, one of the goals of this office will be driving down juvenile crime, and we will make sure that this is done in a responsible way. We must hold our children accountable if they break or violate the law. But we also need to hold ourselves accountable for all of our children's well-being. If children break the law, and we need to put them into a system, and we put them into a system that does not give them the support that they need to choose a better path, then we're doing it wrong. I want to see the Office of Crime Prevention and Policy work in collaboration with state leaders to bolster accountability, rehabilitation, and prevention. We do not have to choose between having a safe Maryland and a just Maryland. We can and we will do both. We can and we will demand both. And we know we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm confident that if we move in partnership, we're going to succeed. So I look around this room and I see leaders from the cabinet, I see leaders from the General Assembly, from the private sector, from philanthropy, and beyond. And together, we are going to achieve big things for our children, because that's why the people of this state sent us here. When our children receive the tools that they need to strengthen their minds and their hearts, they will grow up to lead, they will grow up to compete, they will grow up to build, and they will grow up to dream. When our children have pathways to opportunity, they are more likely to contribute to our society. And that is going to help us win the decade. Now is the time for us to say with one voice that we refuse to accept childhood poverty as a fact of life in the state of Maryland. It is not. Childhood poverty is a choice. And it's a choice this state is not going to make. Now is the time for us to say with one voice that we refuse to accept cycles of crime for certain children in certain neighborhoods as a fact of life in the state of Maryland. It is not, and it is a choice that this state needs to choose to make, that we will not accept it. And now is the time for us to say with one voice that we are going to confront both of these challenges together. And I'm thrilled to be able to now turn the microphone over to my partner in this work, someone who believes in children and believes in their promise like no one else I know, our spectacular Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller.
Thank you very much, Governor, and good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
As I look back on the journey that the Governor and I began together 1 year ago today to serve the people of Maryland, I too am reminded of the sacred trust given to both of us by the citizens of our great state. On January 18, 2023, Governor Moore's 2 children stood by him, and my 3 daughters stood by me when we were inaugurated. It was a deeply profound moment, symbolizing the importance of family and the future we strive to build for not just for our own children, but for all of Maryland's children. Governor Moore and I are deeply committed to ensuring that every child in our state has similar opportunities for growth, education, and a nurturing environment so that they too can stand proudly, knowing their potential is valued and supported. And we will never underestimate the gravity of this profound responsibility. Today's executive orders are another example of the Moore-Miller administration's strategy to tackle child poverty with purpose and intentionality, ensuring that our choices align with our values and our aspirations. The first executive order creates the new Governor's Office of Children. This underscores our commitment to safeguard the present and future success of the youngest members of our state, because all children deserve a chance to grow up in a secure and supportive world where they can live their authentic lives. Addressing child poverty has always been the North Star of our administration, which is why we sponsored and, with the help of the General Assembly, passed legislation that lifted 34,000 Maryland children to the next rung of the economic ladder, as the governor said. But we know our work isn't finished, because creating an environment where children have the opportunity to reach their full potential includes food security, safe housing, access to mental health services, quality education, and community support, and fierce advocates. So the creation of this office will serve these goals, and I am delighted that a thoughtful, intentional, and fierce leader like Special Secretary for the Governor's Office of Children, Carmel Martin, will be leading this office. The second executive order will rename the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services to the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy, a name we're familiar with called GOCAP, right? A lot easier to say than the other acronym. As the governor said, the new name will ensure that this office is laser focused on improving public safety in coordination with supporting law enforcement. Together, the two executive orders will increase our coordination across the government and help us continue to deliver our priorities. Now, it's my great pleasure to turn things over to an individual who's dedicated her life to advocating for victims of violence and creating safer communities for all of us, Dorothy Lenning.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Today is an exciting day. Thank you to the Moore-Miller administration for giving us not only a new name, but also a clear mandate, focus, and mission, allowing us to advise the governor on criminal justice strategies and plan, promote, and fund initiatives supported by state and local government and public service organizations. We've already made great strides rebuilding various programs and initiatives under the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy, and yes, you can call it GOCAP, please do. I'm proud of the work we've done to increase transparency within our office. The public can now view an interactive map that's on our website, and you can click on your county and see where the money we distribute is distributed, the amount of the grant, the purpose, the location, and the awardee. So if you have constituents or other community organizations and we want to see where the money's going, that's where you can look. We've also assembled a top team of finance, grant, and policy professionals to ensure that our public safety funding is getting to our partners around the state on time and with the support they need to be successful in executing their programs. Finally, we've provided opportunities for several state agencies to meet, collaborate, and discuss enhancements to public safety. We are fully prepared to support the Governor's Office of Children in all policy areas where young people are involved. in or could fall victim to crime. I stand proudly with my administration colleagues who are here today and throughout our agencies, ready to support Carmel and the work of the Governor's Office for Children. And with that, I'll hand it over to Carmel, and congratulations.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm a little short for the podium. Thank you, Dorothy and Lieutenant Governor, and thank you so much, Governor Moore. I am just so honored to be joining this stellar team in this extraordinary role. Probably the hardest part of this role is going to be having to be in a speaking program with Wes Moore, but hopefully I'll get better at it as we go along. I am the daughter of immigrants and a first-generation college completer. My parents, however, arguably lived the American dream. My mom's mother took in boarders after her husband died, eight months after her sixth child, in order to make ends meet. And my dad left school, didn't complete middle school, but he retired from one of the largest banks in the world. We were by no means wealthy. When I was growing up, we didn't take family vacations. We didn't have new cars. There was no money for college. But we lived a very comfortable middle-class lifestyle. And my parents retired with relative security when they finally did retire. That said, from a very early age, I realized that not all people in our country have access or benefit from the American dream. And that's really what drove me into a career of public service. My first job out of college was running a homeless shelter on the U.S.-Mexico border. When I was practicing law, my focus was desegregation and school finance litigation. And for the last 25 years, don't do the math, because then you figure out how old I am. I've had the opportunity to work at the highest levels of government alongside presidents, senators, and cabinet secretaries on behalf of children and families. And as the governor said most recently, I had the honor and privilege of serving President Biden and Vice President Harris, helping to pass historic legislation expanding opportunity across this country. But throughout my tenure in the administration, and frankly throughout my career, something that was very evident to me was that no policy, no program, no initiative was going to be successful unless they depended on state and local leadership. This truly is where the rubber meets the road. It is also evident to me that Governor Moore's vision, leadership, and seemingly infinite amounts of energy puts Maryland in a position to lead the nation in expanding opportunity for children and ending child poverty. So having the opportunity to serve him and the Lieutenant Governor and the people of Maryland is truly a privilege for which I am extremely grateful. As the governor reminds us, every child has unlimited potential and deserves our dedication and support. It is up to all of us to ensure that they have the capacity to reach that potential. So I'm especially excited to work for a leader who has made this mission central to his governorship. The governor knows that investments in Maryland's children are investments in our future. But he also reminds us that the level of return on that investment depends on partnership, coordination, and discipline, which is why I am so excited to work with the inspiring leaders that make up the governor's cabinet, some of which are here with us today. Thank you so much for coming. Across the work of the governor's Office for Children and the Children's Cabinet, we're going to have three overarching goals. First, we'll work to break down silos and bureaucracy so Maryland's children and families are more effectively served and resources are fully leveraged to support them. Second, we will work with partners in the federal government, in the local government, in the private sector, in the labor movement, in the philanthropic sector, and at the community level to drive innovative evidence-based strategies to accelerate change. And third, we will lift up community and citizen voices so that we are supporting community-driven work and listening to the people that we are tasked to serve. This is one of the richest states in the richest country in the world. As the governor said, allowing poverty to thrive is a choice. And as you just heard, it's one this governor and this administration is not going to make. So I'm so very thankful to serve him in this war against child poverty and for a state in which every Marylander can thrive. Thank you so much.
Yes. Before we get to signing, if there are any questions, we'd love to answer them.
Governor, there have been, concerns about the coordination regarding the Department of Juvenile Services when it comes to their interactions with local police and prosecutors. Will this be one of the functions of either agency that you are announcing or renaming today?
Thank you. I mean, this is going to be one of the tools that we use. It's also going to be a continuation that's already happening between DJS and local law enforcement, DJS and state's attorney's offices. So we understand that part of the challenge that we have had collectively as a state and historically as a state has been a lack of coordination. Because when you don't have that coordination, when you do not have that communication, then things and really unfortunately people fall between the cracks. And so a core focus of the administration is both how are we increasing coordination between DJS, local law enforcement, et cetera, but also that the coordination can't begin when a young person is already in trouble, right? It cannot begin when we are now having to rectify something bad that happened, but how do we actually have coordination that exists and take place really from cradle to career and beyond. And so that's part of the responsibility that we'll have within this new agency.
Governor Moore, it's my understanding that your predecessor had this type of an arrangement between these two organizations, and then he combined them. And I'm wondering if you can share with us what you noticed that maybe could have worked better if you did what you're doing today.
Yeah, I believe deeply that it's twofold. One, I do believe deeply that measures of coordination matter, and coordination can't just happen as a reaction, that we've got to be proactive in the way that we're supporting our children, and that when the coordination begins after something bad happens, you're never going to get the long-term results that you're looking for. And frankly, what you're going to end up happening is you're going to have more and more young people who you then have to deal with. Because you never dealt with things in the first place. It's having an organization that understands the best way you support a child is by making sure that child is coming up in a strong, supportive home. The best way you support that home is making sure that home exists in a strong, supportive neighborhood. The best way you support that neighborhood is by remembering that that neighborhood is going to have anchor institutions within that neighborhood that all have to be coordinating in order to support that child. That's really how you deal with the best measurement of life cycle. But the second reason, and I do think, and I mentioned it before, language matters. And when we're talking about children as deficits, they're going to act as deficits. But when you're actually rethinking the way we're talking about our children, the ones who we hope for and we pray for and we support and who hold the promise of our future, you're going to address them differently, you're going to support them differently, and I think you're going to have better outcomes. And so we think that this is the appropriate way that this administration is going to move forward in the space.
Governor Moore, can you provide us some examples of what programs might be funded through the new Office of Crime Prevention and Policy?
Absolutely. So, when you think about some of the challenges that exist within children, and people say, is it early childhood education? Is it housing supports? Is it environmental injustice? Is it transportation? The answer oftentimes for our children, especially the ones who are growing up in concentrated poverty, the answer is yes. because that's how poverty continues to show itself. That's how the challenges of their communities continue to show itself. And so whether it's working with organizations that are supporting lead abatement and what's happening when it comes to lead poisoning, and which is hindering and harming so many of our children, whether it's working with organizations that are doing after-school programming or organizations that are doing summer programming, so our children have more resources and things that can not just keep them occupied, but things that can enrich them when they're not in school hours. So it's really a collection of how we're thinking holistically about all the different assets that are going to be necessary to produce the kind of young adults that we're all hoping for.
Last question.
They're excited to get signing.
Let's go. Let's get started.
All right. This is a great day, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.